Since 2011, American Giant has been making everyday clothing with extraordinary effort. Not in far-off factories, but right here in the USA. We obsess over fabrics, fit, and details, because if you're going to wear it every day, it should feel great and last for years. From the cut of a hoodie to the finishing of a seam, nothing is overlooked. Our supply chain is tight-knit and local, which means less crisscrossing the country and more care in every step. The result is durable clothing, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatpants, and denim that become part of your life season after season. This isn't fast fashion, it's clothing made with purpose by people who care as much about how it's made as how it fits. Get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with code STAPLE20.
In a so-called free state, officials and stakeholders concoct solutions to problems often created by other bureaucrats and with little regard for infringements on the people. These stories are born at the apex of freedom and entrepreneurship. We foolishly advocate for the taxpayer. Brian's Beat presents Freedom Fools.
Hour 2 of Freedom Fools on the day of the Chowder Fest in New Bedford. Enjoy the chowder, but keep that WBSM app running right now as we get ready for Hour 2 and taking your calls at 508-996-0500. A little bit more, I won't really try to belabor this, but Elizabeth Warren added more about this Mandani idea of these government-operated grocery stores. I'm still a bit puzzled. I'm okay if you want to do it in City A, but let's not, not in my backyard, not in my city. I don't know that the taxpayers want to foot any of that, but the other side of the coin is once you start the service, it should be able to pay for itself. I mean, that is the thought process. You give it some seed tax dollars, and then as people start buying the groceries, they will pay off that seed money. Whoever pays government off, and then the money that the nonprofit makes, they can put back into groceries. That's the theory. I'm not sure that it's really going to work that way. Anyway, Senator Elizabeth Warren. And let's keep in mind, she is a Democrat, and she's talking about another Democrat, a social Democrat, but still another Democrat. My guess is if Elizabeth Warren could be voting next month in New York City, she'd be casting a vote for Mandani. Keep in mind, there are in New York City entire food deserts, places where about the only place you can buy food are the equivalent of little corner grocery stores. Fruits and vegetables, lower prices are just not available. This is what Senator Warren has stated. It's been tried in other cities with the same kind of conditions, and they've actually worked. According to Senator Warren, she's talking about these government-operated stores. Keep in mind, this is what we do with military. And we had a caller earlier bring up the PX. Well, so did Senator Warren. This is what PXs are about, right? So the idea is to say, I'm going to get out there and do what I can do to actually lower costs for families. I think people are tired of hearing there's nothing we can do or the billionaires wouldn't like it and don't want to have to pay more in taxes. I think part of the answer is no. You get out there and you try things. So I guess if it's your backyard, do you want to see a government-operated grocery store? Me? No. Do I plan on using one if it pops up? At this particular time, I'm going to have to tell you no. 508-996-0500. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
You don't want the government controlling food, because the next step is that if they say sugar is bad, you're not going to find that in a government-controlled grocery store. They will control you. They will limit what you need and not get excess during times of storms. They won't have as much as a grocery store has now. I know that you need these stores where there's food deserts, like Mattapan. I love Mattapan, but they have no grocery store because of the shoplifting, and the businesses went out of business. They said we couldn't do it. So a government store there, they need. But other than that...
you know what? Why? So, to your point, why would a government store want to operate there? Why wouldn't people rob that area, that store?
Because they don't see it as a business. It's the government helping you. All they have to do, if it's a question that there's no locations of big grocery stores in certain parts of New York. So this would be ideal for them. But I think there is another country that tried it, and it failed. I believe it's France, but I'm not too sure. They did a government
well, they've got these stores in Atlanta. I saw a couple of other places on here. Atlanta and a place in Kansas where they're already doing this.
Yes, I'd like to know how many other stores are in that area. They might need them, and the government says we got to step in because no businesses are willing for the price of moving there and starting up a business. Well, it must be difficult to start a grocery store.
Can't you see the same thing in the city of New Bedford?
What do you mean?
So if you live on Brock Avenue, you're not that close to the Price Right or the Save-A-Lot.
Yes, when I was young,
I guess you could call that a food.
There was no big grocery stores. We went to the local little grocery stores.
Yeah, well, I mean, so in theory, here's how I look at it. Once they start to pop up in one city or town, then the next city or town is going to think of it, because politicians, it sounds good, let's do it.
Right, and for prices, saying the price is too high, it's difficult to put prices down now because both factions are fighting each other to keep everybody miserable. But all they have to do is increase food stamps for those people in need.
I guess I'm leery because I can see a city like New Bedford, where you've got a lot of vacant buildings, old schools, whatever, that you can actually turn into these makeshift grocery stores. And since the building is already off the tax roll, it's not like you have to put something on the tax roll now. It works so well as far as government is concerned for the city of New Bedford.
Who pays the rent?
No, there is no rent.
Somebody has to pay something.
How you figure?
Somebody owns the building.
The city.
They're not just going to give it away free.
The city owns the building.
Oh. Okay, that means it's us again.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
okay.
Yes and no. You weren't paying for the building. Going back to it's a school, you weren't paying for it anyway. The school didn't pay a tax, so I guess the group of people in New Bedford ended up paying, but that's not changing.
Well, I guess it's down the road. I don't see it starting tomorrow.
Well, the election in New York City is less than a month away, and so I don't expect them to start when Mandani goes into office right away, but might not be too long. You might be looking at something in February or March.
Yes, we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting spot to start.
Gotcha. Many thanks.
You're welcome.
508-996-0500. Look, I'm not pushing for these, but I can see how they're going to creep in. You've got food deserts and people who can't get to grocery stores, they take their carts and they put them onto the bus. Makes it hard for people to maneuver on the bus. You don't have to be the brightest New Bedford City Councilor to say, hey, you know, this might be a good idea for our city too. Worcester's talking about it. Boston's talking about it. How long will it be before Springfield? How long will it be before Fall River and Lawrence? And what's the other one up there? Not Lawrence, Lowell. The so-called gateway cities. How long will it be before they start chiming the same game? Hey, we need something like this here. Oh, and we've got these vacant buildings. Why not put it over here? 508-9960-500. I'm not for them, but I can see how they're going to seep in. It's like setting the table at Thanksgiving. Everything looks good. Now all you need is that big turkey right down there in the middle of the plate. Who's going to be carving? Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Excellent. How are you?
All right. Thanksgiving, Trump will be carving my turkey in the White House.
Yeah, well, are you going to be in there eating it?
Everybody else is, no, we ain't allowed in there. We're not good enough for him. He got what he wanted out of us. All right, quick question for you, Brian. Out of all the presidents of the United States, whether you loved them, hated them, who's the worst president since the modern day to be president?
Who's the worst president of the modern day, and when does modern day start?
Trump. Well, you know what? We'll be a little fair. Donald Trump's second term. We'll forget. We'll go by his first term. Okay, so up to Biden. Who was the worst president we've had so far? And you could go back to 1860.
Well, I can't go back because I wasn't around then. But I would. You know, I'm going to tend to lean as a president, Milhouse Nixon.
You think Tricky Dicky was the worst one?
Mm-hmm. Took us off the gold standard. I mean, there are lots of things that he did, but yeah, I would put him in that category.
This is the difference, though. Nixon was pretty good at hiding stuff. He'd been doing it for years, and he was getting away with it, but he's being sneaky. Trump comes right out and does it. Nobody does a damn thing about it. About time the Democrats are finally speaking up, because they've sat there the whole time and said nothing, let them get away with it. Republicans useless, let them get away with it. Oh, it's okay. It's sad.
It is sad, but Nixon did try to hide it, and he lied about it, and I think that's what rises him to the top of my heap.
Who do you think did worse crimes, Trump or Nixon? That's proven.
Who do I think did worse? I'm trying. Look, you're asking. Yeah, you're asking questions that you know. I don't sit at home thinking, you know, well, who did the worst crime here? This one there. But I think I'm entrenched in saying Richard Nixon.
Wow. So 32 felonies and a rape charge, and Rich Nixon had all that?
Yeah. I mean, because Nixon promised to get us out of a war, too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Okay. He did eventually get us out of there, though.
No, I think Ford ended up getting us out of there.
Yeah, April 75.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, Ford was president. All right.
All right,
thanks,
man. No problem at all. I appreciate the call. Let us continue. Thank you. Hello.
Hey, Barry. How are you?
I'm Brian.
Brian, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Nothing to be sorry about. Go ahead.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
You say you're all in favor of the government-run supermarkets, which is fine, but not in your city, not in your backyard.
Correct.
And I may have missed it earlier, but why do you not want one in your backyard? If it's good enough for the neighbors, why isn't it good enough for you? I'm just curious why you don't
I think
want
that's
it
an
in
excellent
your
question.
neighborhood.
I think it's an excellent question. Why do I want it? Because I have the vision down the road to see the problem that it's going to create.
And that problem being that it's going to push the Shaws and the Stop and Shops and the Market Baskets out of business.
And before the Shaws and the Stop and Shops and the Market Basket, it's going to push those little mom and pop stores, the Trucci type stores, out before the bigger ones.
So what happens in, say, a city like New York or Worcester, as you've been talking about, or even Mattapan, to the little mom and pop grocery stores that are currently there, just scraping by, doing a great service to the community, even though, they can't provide, 500,000 SKUs like, let's say, a Stop and Shop does, but they, you can get a box of macaroni and cheese, you can get some butter, you can get some milk from the local mom and pops. Aren't those stores going to then force those little guys out of business?
Some of them, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I guess I'm going
to hold on a second. I'm going to, while I say absolutely, what I see happening is the nonprofits migrating into those little stores.
Okay. I mean, that's definitely, and that in and of itself wouldn't be a bad idea, but you're taking,
I think it would be a bad idea.
A lot of these mom and pop stores, have been generational, or at least, someone, who someone who came to this country and started a little store. They've been doing it for 40 years, and now they're going to get sort of run out of business because, I don't know, Big Brother or the government is going to come in, swoop in and start a store, 2 blocks over from them, which they can't compete against, So I guess it has the pros and cons of both sides. I guess my fear is what happens, how do we know the government pricing, they don't have to pay rent. So are they going to then make everything cheaper and, sort of live on the same margins that a regular grocery store does? Or are they going to try and because the government really isn't in the business of running a grocery store. Somebody else is going to run it. How do we know that the profits are going to be, they're not going to be gouging the profits and, they're 10 cents cheaper than Shaw's, but they could be 25 cents cheaper, because they're not paying rent. I think there's a lot of room for.
I think you're just starting to open up that can of worms. You don't know, and who are you going to trust to tell you? And so I'm going to come back. That's why I don't want it in my city or town. It might be good for other people. If I don't live in New Bedford, so I should not be telling New Bedford people what is going to be good for them or not. But damn if I want it in Dartmouth.
No, and I agree with you there. I do live in New Bedford, and I did live near the South End on Brock Ave for some period of time. The fact that, there's really nowhere to put a grocery store on the South End near Brock Ave. If you can't get to Savers or whatever's on Route 18, I mean, you got bigger issues than having a grocery store, right now. I don't think you can put a grocery store in the South End just because people can't, take an Uber to Savers, I mean, I don't think there's enough need for it,
I look at it this way. People can get their people are making it somehow right now, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Okay. But you know what? You know your city councilors better than I do. What do you think that they are going to think? Are you going to be planting that seed in their ear not to go for these kind of supermarkets, not to have this type of control compared to the other folks that are going to be doing it and the poverty pimps that will be breathing down their necks now that Mandani is doing it and they're thinking about doing it up in Boston. They've already had a discussion about it in Worcester. Can't you just imagine?
That's a valid point. And I will say this, until I turned on the radio today, I had never heard that they were thinking about bringing these supermarkets to Boston. But you're right. Politicians are very, the wind blows a certain direction. and it smells good, and they say we got to jump on this bandwagon. And, it's highly possible that our city councilors or our mayor, or I don't even know who makes these, maybe our governor makes these decisions. It's possible that the wind could blow a certain way, and next thing you know, New Bedford is right on the fast track along with Worcester and all those other cities.
I think it's something. No problem. I think it's certainly something to keep your eyes open for. If you live in the city, look, I know that there are people in New Bedford that would want something like this. It's a convenience thing. Plus, it's supposed to be. I'll wait to see the part about the lower price, but it's supposed to be an even lower price. Why would I think that folks that live in New Bedford that are already getting that lower price over at Market Basket compared to Stop and Shop, why wouldn't they want to go to one of the publicly run, as they call them, stores, government-run stores? And then all of a sudden, you're not going to Market Basket, even though you might be able to afford Market Basket if you can get it for less at New Bedford's price, whatever you want to call a place. Why wouldn't you go there? And then the next thing you know, they're going to be making it. Nonprofits have to put their money back into the biz. Now, they can go out and buy more product, and they can also expand. So you might have, I'm just going to name a spot, you might start with your first store up at that old Shaw's on Kings Highway. But then, you might do a little business with the church at the old Shaw's, and let us take over some of the space. We'll help you pay for some of your space with some of the money. That's perfectly legal. One nonprofit helping out another nonprofit. And all of a sudden you've got another store down there, which would be butting up right up against that Save-A-Lot. So, all kinds of things can happen. They will never happen overnight. And you'll be saying, wow, we're making savings. Wow, they got another one of these stores over here too? Wow. How did they do that? 508-996-0500. That's how you get onto the program today.
If the white man, with no laws passed whatsoever, would accept the black man into his school, would accept the black man into his neighborhood, would accept the black man into his social system, economic system, and political system without laws having to be passed, then we would go for that.
This is WBSM.
Take only American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
Here's what's happening this weekend on Town Square Sunday. We'll tell you about a documentary film coming to New Bedford that outlines the dangers of social media. Reverend David Lima and Kathy Rutkowski of the Children's Advocacy Center of Bristol County will join me in a discussion about Can't Look Away, the dangers of social media. We'll also speak with Anthony Barboza, a New Bedford native and internationally known photographer. An exhibit titled I Return with a Feeling of Us is now being shown at the New Bedford Art Museum through November 23rd. And hoorah for the United States Marines. It's their 250th anniversary on November 6th. We'll tell you how a local group is planning to celebrate. I'm Jim Phillips. Join me for Town Square Sunday. Sunday morning at 6 and 11 on 1420 WBSM. 99.5 FM.
Low-cost air helps you find the best airfares, foreign and domestic. Low-cost air, 800-221-6085. Low-cost air, 800-221-6085.
There's no better fool than the Freedom Fools. Now, back to Brian.
I said a government's a way, way, way too big. Government's a way, way, way too big. You know that government's a way, way, way too big. So tell us what you gonna do to make it small. Your move.
To change something, you must build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Classic example of changing that model. Schools used to be private schools. Now, the majority of students go to government-operated schools. And I was thinking, someone told me a long time ago, and I think it was a Fernandez Market, used to be at the site where the New Bedford Police Headquarters is today. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. That predates me coming down here. But if you look at the territory of going from, I guess that's Rockdale Avenue, and if you go to that point in the middle there, Kempton, and go all the way down Kempton, down to the Octopus, and then look at the housing from Kempton, what direction would that be? Heading south, and then going down to County Street, and then going over County, going down to a couple of blocks down, let's say. And then on the other side, by Parkdale and going down, that's a whole bunch of territory with housing developments, where people don't have a supermarket or a fairly large type grocery store. I can see the people in that area saying, you know, I'm tired of taking an Uber all the time. I could use something close, especially we have wintertime coming right now. I can see people really saying, hey, you know, this man Danny's got a good idea for New York City. Why can't we have it for New Bedford City? Just reading here from this story, I don't recall exactly where I got this from. It was an internet search, and it was a story. It might have come out of it didn't come out of the Boston Herald, but I first found the story through the Boston Herald. Boston City councilors, two of them, are calling for a hearing to discuss the role of publicly owned grocery stores in addressing food insecurity. Now, there is a problem. A caller mentioned it earlier in Mattapan, where there are no grocery stores, probably because of crime. Well, whether it's crime related or not, if you take that stretch that I just presented, Kempton down to the Octopus, go Purchase Street north until you get up to Hayden McFadden. No, just stop at Hayden McFadden. No grocery stores. And then you're in that district. If you head toward Fairhaven on Coggeshall, then you're getting into Market Basket territory. But all of that area right there, nothing. Many people that don't have cars, many people that rely on the bus to take them to a Market Basket, or maybe to Save a Lot, or if they like Price Right, then the Price Right, what we used to call Price Right North, which is over there by Hathaway Road. Those are pretty far cries, and you could say that area that I just mentioned is a food desert. And I guess whose district is that? That would probably be a mix between Sean Oliver, Ward 3, and Derek Baptiste, Ward 4. You know, I don't know that either of them would sit in front of the council and plead for a government-operated supermarket. But I can see a couple of the at-large councilors saying, hey, you know, this might not be a bad idea. 508-996-0500. Just last month, a partly city-owned grocery store opened in a downtown Atlanta food desert. How many grocery stores even open up in a downtown city? Do we have, if you look at New Bedford, in downtown New Bedford, I don't know of any grocery stores, supermarkets. There used to be that place where you could go and cash checks and that kind of stuff, but that store has long since been closed. The small community of St. Paul, Kansas, never heard of it. St. Paul, Kansas opened its own grocery store in 2008 with public funds because residents previously had to drive 34 miles round trip to the nearest supermarket. Now, I don't think anybody around here is going to be driving 34 miles round trip. But, 3 or 4 miles round trip, 5 miles round trip, that's a lot. Cabs aren't inexpensive. I don't know what Uber would charge for a ride like that, but it all adds up. And again, politicians like to capitalize on these types of problems. And that's what's happening in the city of New Bedford. In the city of Boston. I'm not downplaying the fact that they're food deserts. But as I've been stating, you can come in and resolve that particular problem. But I can see government saying, look, they did it with schools. They did it with schools. And you can see as well as I can see today that we have plenty of schools that don't need to be open, but they stay open. The government, the school committee, the city, they keep the schools open when they could easily consolidate. Oh, but we can't have our child going to school a couple of miles away, but we can have people going to the grocery store. And what's going to happen as one grocery store does well, we need more. Remember, if it works, then government says, we got to give you more. If it doesn't work, then government has to give you more to try to figure out why it didn't work. So that, I believe, is a genuine fear and a perfect example of why I don't want it in my backyard. I don't know how familiar you are with Dartmouth. It's a huge town. It's one of the bigger towns geographically in the Commonwealth. Where I used to live in the far north, not far from Freetown, and even to another, if I turned right, depending on which way I'm looking, I'm not too far away from New Bedford, up in that area. There are no grocery stores up there. The closest grocery store up there would be the Stop and Shop on Kings Highway. And you're talking mega miles. Now, not 34, but you're talking an easy 10, 11, 12 miles round trip. I don't know that anybody is going to plant one of these grocery stores out in that particular area. But Dartmouth is different. Dartmouth, people do rely on having an automobile, and they get around. Whereas in many of these areas that I've been talking about, Kempton going, Ward 4 and a part of Ward 3, and maybe even seeping over a little bit into Ward 2, depending on where you are. Except for that market basket, there really isn't anything for the people. So I can see where the counselors might come up and say, hey, we got to put one here. But when it becomes successful, somebody's going to come up, well, we've got one here. Why don't we put one over there? And then the next thing you know, you've gone from having 3 in the city of New Bedford to 9. And then they keep on mushroom. You might, I don't think you'll get to 27, but you might get to the point where you have 15 of these types of stores. They're not going to be as large as Stop and Shop, but they'll be big enough and satisfying enough. And as a caller previously stated. I didn't even give this thought, but he's absolutely correct. She was absolutely correct in stating that all of a sudden, if the government says that sugar is bad, a lot of sugary products aren't going to be there. You might not be able to get the, those little juicy juice plastic bottle things and other products because government has already said they're bad. And you got to figure that somewhere in there that the city government is going to get some type of grant from the state, and the state will get some kind of grant from the federal government. And I say this, yes, Trump is in office right now. Eventually, he'll be out of office. And so federal grants might pop back up. DEI might pop back up. And in saying that, DEI might pop up and these grocery stores go into DEI prevalent areas or are operated by DEI personnel. I can see that happening. Can't you? 508-996-0500. There's another topic of interest that I was going to save for all of hour number 3, but I think I might want to bring it in right now. Do you realize, as a taxpayer here in the Commonwealth, that we pay for abortions? If somebody is a Medicaid recipient, they have a right to have their abortions paid for by you and me. And while the word abortion is not written into the Massachusetts Constitution, a Supreme Judicial Court decision going all the way back to 1981, so that's 44 years ago, Massachusetts taxpayers have been paying for many abortions. Abortion is not even written. But the way the Constitution reads, rules that the Constitution requires that women eligible for Medicaid have a right to have their abortions paid for by the taxpayers. Even if the federal Medicaid dollars to abortion clinics are cut off by this administration, Massachusetts is required to make up the deficit, according to the state Supreme Judicial Court. That means we're on the hook. We are on the hook for folks that are on Medicaid. If they choose to have an abortion, that person doesn't have to pay for it. You probably know how I feel about that. But just in case you do not, I will tell you, absolutely not. Why should I have to pay for someone's medical decision that I don't know, have nothing to do with, that isn't an emergency? Why am I required to pay for that? It has nothing to do with how I feel about abortion, about that type of medical procedure. Has nothing to do. It has everything to do with a taxpayer's right to not pay for something that I personally am not getting a benefit from. My representation, it's not there. And please don't tell me, well, if the woman has a child, then you're going to end up paying down the road, all this other stuff. This is part of the problem. Throwing the burden onto my shoulders to make it sound like, well, you're better off paying for this now. I'm sorry. I had nothing whatsoever to do with the entanglement of this woman. If she can't get help from the father or from her family, maybe she can get help from some friends. But it should not be on the taxpayer's pocketbook. Now, I know many people are going to disagree with that. I've had arguments about this before. But think about her. I'm always thinking about her as it would be in this particular situation. As if I'm the bad guy because I'm thinking about my family. I'm not thinking about her and thinking about, well, if you have this child in society, X, Y, and Z. If I don't speak up now, I have this sad feeling, and I think life is bearing this out right now, that folks won't learn. They'll keep on behaving. They keep getting into risky behaviors. Now, somebody's going to say, but what about rape or incest? Well, you've got the bad guy, if it's a rape or if it's incest. Make that person pay. I don't know how much an abortion costs. I would think with pills, it's a lot less expensive. But if you've got a crime, which incest or rape would be, make the bad guy pay for it. Don't make the taxpayers pay for it. And so we've got, in my book, we've gotten that part taken care of. Now we're getting into what was consensual. If it was consensual, look, you may not have a bad guy, but you've got a father, you've got a potential mother. If the mother wants the abortion, or potential mother wants the abortion, and it's going to be less expensive for her down the road, why should the taxpayers have to pay for that? Am I wrong about this? Am I looking at this through square glasses? It has nothing, in my book, it has nothing whatsoever to do with being pro-life. I think everybody is pro-choice. You may feel like you are pro-life, or you may be choosing life, but only government can take that choice away from the individual. So in my book, everybody is pro-choice. That stated, if you were pro-choice going into it, then why can't you use the choice if you want to eliminate a pregnancy? Pay for it. And I don't know how expensive it is. Well, let's say it's $150. And the only reason why I say $150, I do recall a friend of mine back in high school who had a girlfriend who got pregnant, and it was $75 in 1973 money. So I'm just doubling the cost. It might be more. But in this day and age, you can borrow that kind of money, and certainly it's going to save you many medical bills leading up to going into the hospital for birth, if that's what you choose. But it should not be on the backs of the taxpayer to pay for somebody else's, for someone's abortion that they do not know. So again, I'm not sure how this ruling came about through the state Supreme Judicial Court. I'm not sure how the language was adopted into our state constitution. But I do know this. There is a group out there, they're called the Massachusetts Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortion. And they're trying to get up the necessary signature for a constitutional amendment in 2028. Now, in their writing, Thomas Harvey is his name. He writes, this is an opportunity for Massachusetts pro-life people to put their beliefs into action. That's what he is saying. I believe that there are many people that would fall under the banner of pro-choice that don't want to pay for someone else's abortion. I'm not even going to try to draw a line, whether it's 50-50, 60-40, whatever the case may be. But I'm willing to believe that there are many people that would fall under, it's a woman's right to choose. But if it's a woman's right to choose, it's her choice. Why should I pay for that choice? I would like to think that this makes sense. But I'm led to believe that maybe it doesn't. Because for 44 years, this has been etched in the state constitution. How it got there, I do not know. Maybe somebody wasn't even thinking along the lines of abortion when they put this into the Constitution or got an amendment within the Constitution passed. But it's there. And the first step is getting out of there. Now, I say it's the first step. The first step is getting up the signatures and then eventually getting to a vote in 2028. And basically, what the statement is, nothing in this Constitution, meaning the Massachusetts Constitution, requires the public funding of abortion. Is that something that you can agree with? 508-996-0500.
Give me liberty or give me death.
This is WBSM.
Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Peter Paul, I'm enjoys got nuts. Peter Paul mounts don't. Because sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
You know how politicians take advantage of a crisis. Would it be okay if I do the same? The Small Business Administration is closed during the shutdown. However, owners still have a viable option. It's called alternative capital through legitimate business funders. At legitimate business funders, owners can get up to $2 million with no collateral in just a few days. To find out more, go to legitimatebusinessfunders.com. Legitimatebusinessfunders.com.
People ask all the time, who the heck is Low Cost Airlines? Well, we're not just one airline. When you're talking to us, you're talking to everyone. We are the discount supermarket for all airline tickets. Plus, we have all the airlines and always have the best prices. American, Delta, United, plus all the specialized international airlines and a lot more. And we make it easy. We guarantee you'll talk to a live human in 60 seconds. You can have the rate you need and have your trip booked in 5 minutes. Now, how cool is that? And remember, when you're talking to us, it's like talking to every single airline available with one fast phone call. All you need to do is call and find the best prices to fly wherever it is you want to go. So are you ready? Call Low Cost Airlines right now. 800-221-6085. 800-221-6085. 800-221-6085. That's 800-221-6085.
Freedom Pools on WBSM. Here's more with Brian Thomas.
That's what I want.
But whether you're in Massachusetts or you think about coming to Massachusetts, you are not welcome to engage in that conduct at any time, in any place, anywhere in this state.
That was Governor Healy earlier this week, clamping down on the folks that come in to do these car meetups. Well, we're into the weekend. I wonder if there are going to be any car meetups happening in a community near us. In fact, we had Fall River and Middleborough last weekend. And, pardon me for the little bit of a chuckle, but the Middleborough police or the state police in that area, they were chasing two cars down 495 South and then on to 195 East. And as the police were saying, the chase went into Rhode Island, and somehow Rhode Island police just kind of lost the cars. Makes me wonder, were you really trying Rhode Island? And also, I guess we should wonder about just how fast the Massachusetts police cars are. You know, who knows? But the chase went for several miles, and they couldn't catch up. Anyway, what's your thought about paying for abortions for people you don't know? And I say it like that because, quite frankly, they seem to happen day in and day out here in the Commonwealth. And if you are on Medicaid, you're Medicaid eligible, and that's people that are considered broke. If you want an abortion and you're on Medicaid, you have a right to get it for free, and the taxpayers will, you know, we've been saying, yeah, we'll pay for that. We keep on paying for it time and time again. Now there's a chance. That's not going to happen overnight. But the signature drive is underway for a 2028 constitutional amendment vote to basically stop us from having to pay for abortions. And it reads like this: nothing in this Constitution requires the public funding of abortion. Bring me the sheet. I'll sign on the dotted line. 65 in Carver, 64 in Fall River, 64 in New Bedford.